Today's date is August 19th, 2003. This is for the Sports Oral History Project for New Westminster. The interviewee is Bill Jiry. So, Bill, what is your first name, first and full name?
William Joseph Jiry.
And what's your date and place of birth?
9/24/31.
All right. What about your current address?
204 411 Agnes Street in New Westminster.
Okay. Tell me what your marital status is.
I'm married. I do not live with my wife, but my wife and I do things together. We are quite active in seniors and veterans things, and also in quite a few of the city, like she works out of Coquitlam, and she's involved with the Red Hat Society and the Women's Age to Perfection group.
Okay. And what's her maiden name?
Carol.
Okay. Do you have any children or grandchildren?
I have one son who's in Louisiana. He's 46 from a previous marriage. He's been down there. He's in computer in Louisiana.
All right. Were you always from New Westminster?
Born and raised in St. Mary's Hospital.
Yeah, okay.
And lived in Saffron all my life pretty well, other than a couple of years when I was president of a company and lived in the States, and lived 1 year in England as a book buyer.
Oh, all right. And what about your parents? Where were they from?
My mother was from the Ukraine, as was my dad. My dad came over quite early. He went to the States, and he came up from the States in 28 and formed Royal City Auto Wreckers. And he was familiar. He got to know my mother's sister. So he brought her over. There's about 18 years difference between the two of them. They got married.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? And so you grew up in Saffron as a child, is that right?
In Saffron.
Right. So how did you get involved in sports?
Well, everybody out there was involved in some type of sports activities, either baseball, soccer, or lacrosse. And I was also into that.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily into lacrosse because that was the most active one in a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on, I became involved in the executive end of it. And then when my son came around, he played sports as well, into lacrosse, but primarily hockey and football.
Hockey and football. So you would say then, at a young age, that your primary sport was lacrosse? Is that
primarily
right?
lacrosse. I was involved in the executive side of it. I went right through this, all the way through as president of the Westminster Mine Lacrosse Association, which was looking after Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, and Surrey, and the New Westminster group. We had about 1,800 kids under our jurisdiction, and I was vice president of the BC Lacrosse Association, and I also was a referee for junior lacrosse as well.
Okay, we'll just back up a little bit. As a child or as a kid, when you played sports, was it with your neighbors in the community, or
primarily people I grew up with from the school in the area?
So you played in the school, or would you?
No, we played in the area. It was like Saffron out of the box in Hume Park. They had a box down there, box lacrosse.
Okay.
And primarily, most of the kids played down there, so we congregated down there, and we formed a team from Saffron.
Oh, I see. So before it was just sort of pickup games.
Pickup games, basically.
Yeah.
And we moved into that. And as we got active in playing for the district, we became active in the executive side of things, and I moved along in that capacity.
Right. Now, as a child, how old would you have been when you began playing any sport?
I started to play sports, I guess, when I was about 6 or 7.
6 or 7. And that was, what sport was that?
Primarily, at that time, it was soccer and softball.
Soccer.
Under Stan Churchill. Stan Churchill was the man in the U.S. Minister for softball.
Right.
He was Mr. Softball. And I went to school with Dennis. It's two of his kids that played. And I got kind of into that at that time.
Right.
And then moved on from there into soccer and with the police department here, Fred Blewett, who was quite active in sports activities for the police department. So I played soccer with them as well.
Oh, okay. And that would have been outside of the school, is that right?
Oh, yeah, that was outside the school.
Right. So were there any sports you played in elementary school?
I played basketball for Rudy Wiley when he was coaching up there. I played I played softball in the school team as well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I played soccer on the school team, and I played basketball.
Oh, okay. And this was all before high school, or?
This was 7, 8, and 9.
7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you been involved in sports all your life then?
Up until about, I guess maybe 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I became involved with as my son was playing, with Earl Peterson in hockey. So Earl had the all-star hockey team, and I was involved with that, with him. And I also became when I returned from the States, I became involved in football with Richmond Raiders Football Club. I was one of the founding directors of Richmond Raiders Football Club team out in Richmond. And that's a junior B team, and then it became a junior A. And as my son moved over, he played for Renfrew, and I was involved with Renfrew in the junior A league as well.
For football. Okay, let's get back then. You said your primary sport was probably lacrosse, is that right? So as a team player, how did you contribute? What position did you play?
I played, in those days, we had 7-man lacrosse, 4 periods per game, not like we do today. I played rover, which is the one of the positions that you're all over the floor, so to speak, as a point man.
Right.
Setting up that. And that's basically back then. I have never played 6-man lacrosse like they do today, and I've never played in the 3 period. Mine goes back too far. Okay. I go back when, 38, 40, when I used to, Bill Wilkes Sr. come back, they brought Bill Wilkes Sr. in. I go back with the Hildebrands, Ike and Freddie, that played out here. And in those days, it was the Admax one night and the Seven Bellies another night in the city of Westminster. One was a Tuesday night and one was a Thursday night. Home games. There was no team in Coquitlam in those days. And the Douglas brothers and Bobby Lee and all of these guys, and Fritzy Cavlin, the Richmond Farmers, the North Shore Indians used to play over here, and the Vancouver Burrards.
Okay.
Those are the old teams, basically, that were the original ones that came from that.
Right.
I later moved into, with Gordy Foka, to play and became an executive of the field lacrosse that we used to play in Saffron Park.
Oh, okay. So you played some field lacrosse.
So field lacrosse is a little different. We played against the American team once, John Hopkins, that came up. Field lacrosse, as you know, is totally different from box lacrosse. You can only have so many attacking players in the zone, and you have the long sticks, which is totally different from what we have here today.
Right. And so, you're the first person I've interviewed that was involved in field lacrosse. Explain to me why New Westminster ended up becoming more into the box lacrosse and not.
Well, years ago, we used to play in the early 20s. It was basically field lacrosse in Queen's Park Arena.
Oh, okay.
That's when they used to play that. Then, as time went by, they moved inside to box lacrosse. Okay, so in field lacrosse, you have 11 players, and you only have 7 in box.
Okay.
And Westminster became very prominent. As you know, the Hall of Fame is here. And we have a lot of regalia and a lot of history out of field lacrosse, or box lacrosse.
Right.
But there is a lot in field lacrosse that's in there as well. We turned around, and then I guess during the war years, they started to bring players out from back east, like Bill Wilkes Sr., who worked for City Hall, and his son even played. He's a fireman, Bill Wilkes Jr., played for the Seven Bellies, and they brought the box lacrosse in and made it very popular, and had won under the Seven Belly auspices, and even the Adbacks in later years, a lot of Man Cup tradition, and won a lot of Canadian championships. But basically, Westminster moved into the box, and then I guess probably the middle 50s, towards the late 50s, there was a resurgence of field lacrosse, primarily from the colleges back in eastern United States. John Hopkins and Harvard in box lacrosse, and we went back also to start playing there. Field lacrosse, pardon me. Yeah. And we went back to play that as well.
Right.
We have a lot of our players that have played dual. They played field lacrosse, and they also played box lacrosse.
Right. And how could they find the time to do these two things?
Well, at that time, the fellows that were playing were not working. They could have been younger. They didn't have jobs like they have today, where their commitments are tied up. There is a league back there that they've gone to Australia to play. They've gone to New Zealand to play. They've gone all over, and they pick the players up for, say, a 2-month period, and they compensate them a bit for their time. In those days, it was a little different than it is today. The commitments for earning a living weren't quite as drastic as they are now.
Mm.
And they had a lot more time. They come out of university or high school, and they're waiting to go over to the next year of university, and they'd be playing their sports. And you're going to look at lacrosse, per se, we are doing a lot more of an attitude of professionalism now. We're bringing players in and paying them to come out here.
Mm-hmm.
The first player that I remember that was paid to come out here and play was Jack Bionda.
Right.
We paid Jack $3,000 a year to come out and play for us out here. And that was picked up by O'Keefe Breweries.
Right.
At those days.
They were the sponsors.
They were somewhat the sponsors to him. And in those days, we amalgamated the two clubs that were around here in those days. The Adanacs and the Salmonbellies were amalgamated when 1952 or 53 to Commandos. And then shortly after that, the O'Keefes came on board, so we were called the O'Keefes. There wasn't Salmonbellies and Adanacs.
Okay.
But it became O'Keefes.
Oh, okay.
And the O'Keefes put up the money to bring in Jack, who played out here for lacrosse and then played hockey for Portland.
Right.
Because he belonged to Portland and it belonged to the Bruins.
Right.
In that. So he played hockey in Portland, and he played lacrosse up here in the summertime.
Oh, I see.
And we paid him $3,000 to.
Right.
It was a stipend. That was one of the stipulations that they had with it.
Mm-hmm. So what were the teams that you actually were involved in as a player?
I was involved with the Sandbellies.
The juniors?
No, not the juniors. I never played junior. I skipped. I went from juvenile B lacrosse with Westminster Saffordton right over into Jack Wood's senior Sandbellies.
Okay.
Along with Billy Job and Harry Preston.
Right.
And Jack Barkley that came on later.
Right.
A lot of the players that come out and went through the juniors, the likes of Jack Barkley, Cliffy Sepka, which is very prominent, Barkley, Ivan Stewart, which was very prominent. They come out of a group out of Newton.
Oh, okay.
They were in the Newton system. They were in my minor system, Donnie Sepka. They come out of there and they became very, very good players. Cliffy stayed in with the Sandbellies. Jack Barkley, Ivan Stewart went with the Adanacs. And that's a lot of that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
On the boys out of Saffron, there was Al Luthwaite, Ray Benny, Dave Matheson, Stevie Deason. They come out of the Saffron group, which was also a very talented group of players.
Right. So you played minor lacrosse in Saffron, and then you went to senior lacrosse.
Yeah.
And then
you went into senior B.
Senior B.
Because of the two amalgamations.
Right.
I'm one of the players that got left out of the loop in that sense because the amalgam it had a lot of players. So I played for the Hotel Russell, Hotel Russell Senior B under Gordy Pogue, and I played in the Senior B League around here, which was actually in those days a butcher league.
Okay,
it was known as a butcher league because you get hacked up.
Oh, okay.
The rules didn't apply, so to speak.
Right.
So you had to be tough.
We're not like Senior A anymore. We're Senior B.
Senior B, and they hack you to pieces.
Oh,
you
really?
got Jiry Phelan, which is a longshoreman, and Buddy O'Brien, which is also a longshoreman, and these guys, they didn't care. If you scored too many goals, they'd take and beat the heck out of you with a stick. It was a butcher league. That's what they called the butcher league in those days.
Okay.
But you had to be tough to play.
I bet. I bet.
I got scar. I had a scar on the top of my head here for a long time. But I got told if I score another goal or try and get another goal, that's it. Well, I took 4 steps and I don't remember anything. My chum said, I'm in hospital holding my hand. I want to know what happened. He says, well, he told you not to go after another goal. He'd already scored 7 goals and 4 assists, and it's only the third quarter. We had another quarter to go, and you took off, and he just took a stick and right over your head, and that's out.
Really?
Oh yeah, I had to pile my hair up on both sides because if my mother ever seen it, I'd been dead. No, really.
Yeah.
It was a crazy league, but it was a tough league. But everybody respected. After the game, everybody goes into the Station Hotel and sit down and drink beer, or go into Russell or Lou or the King Eddie here.
Right.
And sit down and have a beer. After the game, that was it.
Yeah.
But during the game, you don't make us look bad.
Right.
That was the whole concept of that Senior B League. It was a good league. A lot of the players moved back and forth in that league, but it was a tough league.
Yeah.
It was a lot tougher and a lot more referee scrutinized than the senior A League was a lot more scrutinized down to things.
Right.
B was wide open.
Right. I guess they didn't have the sort of national stringent.
Oh no, they didn't. You know, you take the team from back east, the Indians and all of these players that come back from back there. They had guideline rules.
Right.
Senior B didn't have any guideline rules in those days. Not like it is today. Totally different today. We were a lot more organized, and you got to remember there was no lacrosse in Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Manitoba in those days.
Okay.
It only existed in British Columbia and the East.
Right.
Okay. And we also had lacrosse. We gave, under the BC Lacrosse Association, we gave sticks to the schools, and we were introducing lacrosse into the high schools.
Oh.
In those days.
For high school teams.
For high school teams. We started to organize that in later years. Mm. And this was the start of a different attitude, because we felt that that's the only way we would get expansions. And a lot of the kids joined those because it was a team effort, like soccer. Everybody got a chance to play because there's not just one guy. Mm-hmm. You had maybe 12, 14 players on each team. So the high schools took that program in, and for about 5 years, I guess, we were supplying sticks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. So how long did you play in the junior B team then?
I played in the junior B team for about 2 years.
Or was that senior B or junior B?
Senior B? Oh, I played in the senior B team for about 5 years.
Right, so 7 years in total.
Yeah.
And then you went on into more administrative stuff.
I went into the refereeing and involved in the other side, which was administration with the BC Lacrosse.
Well, talk to me a little bit first about refereeing. What did you do, or what teams did you referee?
Well, the junior teams, the Vancouver teams, the Bill Blacks and Handleys and all those, we were basically under the BC Lacrosse Association in charge of playoffs in those leagues. But we also referee games like in North Vancouver, North Burnaby. We had a team here. We had a team out of Kitsilano in Kerrisdale, and we had one out of Richmond. And we would go around and referee at North Burnaby.
And are these minor teams or?
These were the junior teams.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like the junior Sandbellies that they had, the junior Vancouver Burrards.
Right. Right.
And these are players that were in the next step to go into the seniors.
Oh, I see.
The Pete Blacks, okay, and such. And I was the referee in chief at that time.
This would have been the 50s still, or?
Oh, this is a little later than the 50s. Yeah, it'd be the late 50s, early 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what was it like being a referee?
Getting a lot of abuse.
Did you?
If you didn't duck when a guy swung a fist, you had a black eye. And then he says, "I'm sorry, the guy in front of you ducked and you were in the way." I'm in Queen's Park Arena one time, and there's a fight going on. And I'm holding this guy, and all of a sudden he goes down, and all I did is get a black eye because the guy took a swing at him. He ducked down, and there I am. I'm vulnerable because I'm holding the guy. I can't defend myself.
Right.
It was a tough league in those days because each player at that stage in his career was out to prove himself.
Right.
So he would be brought up to the seniors. And especially in Vancouver, Peter Black and these guys, they were tough players.
Yeah.
They could hold their own even with the seniors.
So on the field, is there only one referee? Is that right? There's two. And
you play one in one quarter, one the other, and you go up and down the floor like that. So he has his, but you got to be there to protect him and vice versa.
Right.
You got to have a weak referee over there that has got no guts. Right. And wouldn't protect you, and you get into a fight, and you're the only guy in the fight trying to break up a fight, and you got two guys that are twice as tough as you are because they're proving themselves, and it could be rough.
Did you ever kick anyone out?
Yeah, I threw Pete Black out. He was going to take it up to the BC Lacrosse Association, and then he found out that I was the referee in chief that would be sitting on it, and this was at a championship in North Burnaby.
Oh yeah.
And Peter went on to be a great player. And played with the Vancouver Bards for a good many years, but he just kept lipping, And I told him, I says, one more word, says, and you're off. And this is in a provincial final. And he made the mistake. I said, that's it. Gone. You can't throw me out. I'm the guy that's in charge of this floor, Peter.
Right.
You're gone. Following year, he went up to Vancouver Burrards. And he quite often used to say, he says, you're the only guy that I know that ever tossed me out of a game.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Really?
I said, you're the only goddamn principal that I ever did toss out, too.
Did you ever get flack from the audience?
Oh, yeah. You got a lot of. Especially if you're in the opposition's things. What was that call for? The guy high-sticked him. He just touched him on the shoulders, you know. Everybody sees the game in a different light.
Yeah.
You have to remember that.
Yeah.
And when you're playing in any sport, they never see what you see as a referee, because you're always looking at these things, because you're always encountering every time you're playing, whether it's football or even refereeing in soccer or football or anything. But the party that is looking at it never sees it. They're only seeing it for their advantage, and you get pretty thick-skinned.
You have to be pretty impartial too, I think.
Oh yeah. I threw my son out one time. My son is not a small player.
Is this in football then, or?
It's in football. He's a 255 lineman. He went through, nailed a guy and knocked him out cold and had to get him to the hospital. Eyes were dying like that. And after the game, I said, what'd you do that for? I says, I told him he's not going by me anymore. I said, you know what you did to him? He says, yeah. I said, you know why you got thrown out? Yeah. Do you care? No. I said, that's not the right attitude. He says, I told him that's it. He's not going to make me look stupid anymore.
Well, I guess that's the game,
but
right?
That's it, you know. You can't turn around and be for one team or the other. You have to have a thick skin. And I've had parents threaten me and everything else until they found out that I'm the executive that's going to be sitting on making the decision, and that changed things.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess so.
It does.
So, how long did you ref for?
I ref for about 8 years.
And that was just lacrosse, or?
Just lacrosse.
8 years, hey?
Yeah.
And any other teams that you refed?
No, I didn't bother going into football because in football I became a trainer.
Okay.
And in football, and I was involved on the executive side of that as a trainer primarily, and represented the BC Junior Big Four Football League.
Right, and that was in Richmond, is that right?
Out of Richmond, and then out of Renfrew.
Where's Renfrew?
Renfrew is in East Vancouver.
Oh,
Renfrew Trojans.
Right, okay.
Renfrew Trojans. The names that you have to remember have changed today. They're not the same. You know, they're playing out of Maple Ridge now, or they're playing out of Ladner, whereas before there was only the Marilomas, Renfrew Trojans, and Richmond Raiders.
Right.
There's only 5 or 6 teams.
Right.
And the Okanagan Suns, which was part of the one of the teams from Calgary that was sponsoring them up there, the Air Force up there. But they've been moving around quite a bit in these years. Well, when I talk about it, I give you a name and you're lost because you've never heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I go back, when it was still the core.
Right. In our previous interview, you mentioned the Bulldogs. What are they?
Bulldogs was a team that come out of Safford.
Okay.
And they were
a football team?
A football team,
okay.
12, 13, 14-year-olds.
Okay.
And underdogs.
Yeah.
Everybody was smaller than everybody else, but we had like little Mike that owns the Hotel Russell, which is the college place. He was the toughest little kid and the smallest little kid I'd ever seen play football. He would go out on that field and he would take on anybody, go through the whole team, and pick a fight with the biggest guy on that team. He couldn't even reach him to hit him, but he picked a fight with him.
And you were coaching these guys, or?
My son my son was playing for him, and I was an assistant coach. And Mike used to always beg to go on. Come on, let me go in. I'll get him. He won't do that again to us. And but it was the cohesion of the team as such. They had more guts. Okay, and they're pretty talented, but they're just undersized. But they wanted to play football, so we managed to get a sponsorship together. And we used to play out of Queen's Park. And if you ever seen the team out there, you'd never, you'd think they're all 12 and 13-year-olds, where they're 4-year-olds.
Oh, really?
They're so doggone small, but a tough team. We won our fair share of teams. And then my son took over coaching in North Delta, and I got involved a little bit with him in that.
Right. So, I mean, football isn't spoken a lot about in New Westminster. Is it because it came in later, or what?
Well, you get more. Football came out of Vancouver with Marilomas and the Vancouver club there. Westminster was primarily known as the City of Champions, per se.
Yeah.
As a lacrosse and soccer.
Okay.
We had the Soccer Royals that used to play here, which was under the auspices of John Prentice of Canadian Forest Products, and then we used to play soccer out of Queen's Park, and that was a pretty good team.
Mm-hmm.
Softball was very big out of Moody Park with Stan Churchill.
Right.
Very, very big.
Right.
And so was lacrosse. That was the primary a team-type sport that was available for us in here.
Right.
Football, we never had, Burnaby South had a football team, and that's about the closest team that I think that we came in contact with, but never into a league.
No, right?
No. Like my son went to play for Richmond Raiders. That's why I got into Richmond Raiders. I come back as president of Educational Book Company from the States. And I got pulled out to a meeting, and all of a sudden I'm on the board, and I'm signing a check for the equipment that we ordered from the States. And that's how I got involved. And we had a bingo every Wednesday night raising money for the Richmond Raiders.
I see.
But the only reason I got involved because he played there and the two Lovitts played there. Now, football came in stronger in latter years because the high school decided to have a football team, and also so did the Catholic school.
Oh, okay.
So then that's when football came in.
And then was there a rivalry between those two then? Or?
Well, not so much between them, but between Notre Dame, Vancouver College, and St. Thomas More.
Oh, okay.
And Al, who used to be the broadcaster for CKNW, Davidson, his son was involved with that because my son played with him. My son played for the high school, but when it came football, he transferred over to the Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a letter, I'm in the States, I get a letter saying that your son has been transferred, will you sign this? My son's going to a Catholic school? I'm not Catholic. Okay. So I get home and I'm watching it, and he's playing for the, he got his letters at St. Thomas More. The two Lovitts, which he chummed with, played there. All of a sudden, football season's over, he's right back into the high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, transferred back. So, but that's when the football started to come in more so then. Now,
that would have been when, the 70s? Or
oh, yeah, that would be the 70s.
Like when in the 70s?
The latter part of the 70s.
Oh, really?
Now, we're just getting football back into the high school here now.
Oh, okay.
We've just started a new program because it's gone off the board here. Now, they've just started this year with a new guy that's coaching, and they're doing it. But you had Centennial out in Coquitlam that used to be part of that league way back then. And it's starting to come back in a bit. Okay, they're pushing for it. And I think that's because Bobby's goes back way, way back. I go back with Bobby when he was a water boy with the Lions before he ever got to Dallas and all these other places. And he used to work for a company called Spalding's, which is the sporting goods, like the Earl Peterson used to have here. Spalding's was in Vancouver.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
I see.
Yeah.
We've talked about your refereeing then. As a person in administration, how did you begin? And give me sort of a little talk about that.
Well, the administration side of things, as you might or might not be aware, is primarily getting the funding and the sponsorships for on-the-floor activities.
Okay.
You had to go out and get your sponsorships for your sweaters and your gear. You had to turn around and do the administrative work in the sense that you had to have the ground rules on how you play and what you can and can't do within the league, per se. And that's when I became, because I was in business, and I became a secretary. Then I moved up into administration in different functions of getting sponsorships. Well, at one time,
this is just lacrosse or others?
Generally speaking, in any sport, you're in lacrosse. I could sponsor a team at one time for $150, and that included the shorts, and the sweater. Well, I can't buy a sweater today for $150, okay?
Yeah.
But in those days, I had a lot of connections in the business world. I was involved with it. And I could go out and tap these guys for a sweater sponsorship. And that was my function, is getting monies to keep the league going, like Billy Armstrong does today with the Sun Valley alumni, which I had to be a member of.
Right.
Okay. That was administration in those days. Today it's totally different. You have to raise a lot of money to run a team and pay for everything. You need to raise quite a bit of money.
Oh yeah.
And when you get into the senior group, like the Paul Parnells and those that were in here, you're also going to make it attractive for them. They get paid a share per diem.
Okay.
Now a share is if you played 50 games and you get for every game you played you got a share. And that comes off the gate at the end of the year. That happened a little later on. I don't know. Today I think it's totally different. Today they're paying some of these players to play.
Right.
But then we had 50 shares. Okay, so
the 20 shares.
So 20 shares. And what you do is at the end of the year, what the money that was made in the kitty, you break down so much per share. So if you got $10, if they said, okay, we can pay $10 per share. So if you got 20 shares, it's 10 times 20. If a guy played 50, it's 10 times 50. And that's the way they used to do it.
Oh, okay.
And now,
and would there be bonuses for better players?
No,
like
that was it. Now that became a little awkward because the curve of participation went down quite drastically. So
in terms of audience,
in terms of fans,
right?
And some guys could play all season and make $50, $20 off. 90% of the boys in those days, and they played because they loved to play the game. In that, it's changed now because now the Sun Valley alumni have big golf tournaments and everything else. And what they do is they get a big kitty and they pay guys. They buy players from back east and bring them out to play here.
Right.
Okay, which is a totally different concept. It's a business concept, strongly business concept today. I remember sitting down with Tommy Gordon, who was the commissioner of lacrosse, senior lacrosse. And I said to him, I says, why don't we go professional? And his remark to me was, he says, we might have to pay income tax. Now, and he worked for the Pacific Coast Terminals. He's a businessman. I'm looking at him, I says, Christ almighty, Gordon, how stupid can you be? If you got to pay income tax, that means you're earning money. He looked at me and I says, I'm a great 10 dropout dumb Ukrainian, but I says, I've got enough sense to realize that. Well, we just don't want to do that. That is why lacrosse never took off. Lacrosse became professional back east, but not out here.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you have the Vancouver professional.
Yeah, but that comes from back east.
Oh, does it?
Oh, yes. The professional team came from back east. What do you call it? The announcer, Brian, what the heck was his name? That used to be the announcer in hockey. Started a format with John Ferguson back there.
Oh, okay.
And Bishop out of Detroit. They formed a professional league, and they were playing players. And that's why, if you look at it, back east, the Pittsburgh and Detroit have almost sellouts.
Really? Well, I know lacrosse is big in the States, for sure.
Yeah, because they went professional with it.
Now, is this field lacrosse or box lacrosse?
This is box lacrosse.
Oh, okay.
And they have players that play for the seniors out here, but they play professional back there. Time element allows this.
Oh, I see.
If you look at it, the time element allows it. And it's a shortest season. But they've had sellouts back there. They're fighting to get them in here because the seniors here was always in the amateur thing, and it's a psychological thing. You think amateur, they're not the best.
Right.
We have the best players,
right,
by far. But in your mind, it's amateur, it's not the best.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened.
Right. Tell me a little bit about, well, you're saying there's been a decline in fan base and stuff. Well, what's the difference between what it was like when you first were involved in?
Way back when the Annex Assemblies were out here, our arena here, you had a game, a playoff game. You'd pay $1 now, but remember, keeping in mind the dollar value. I remember paying $1.50 to sit on the stairs to watch a game here. You couldn't move in that place.
Really?
Okay. with the Douglases, the Cavados, Sandy Cavado, my cousin Sandy Cavado, the Hildebrands, Freddie and Ike, and the Catalans, the Indians, the North Shore Indians, the Josephs. They'd come out at halftime. They'd be playing the game, come out at halftime and do an Indian dance on the floor, and then go back in, change, and go back out for the second half of the
really?
Oh, yeah. It was very entertaining. And they had a big following in those days, just like Ernie McLean used to have with when Stan Schmiel played hockey here.
Right.
The monkey section, they go bananas. That slowly started to delve away because of the changes in the earning power and the changes of attitude with the younger group coming up that didn't follow through. And as a result, we lost a lot of the kids. I always used to have a real tough time. I said when I was president of minors, I says, I'm a glorified babysitter. I could never get the parents out. Kids, they drop the kids off and they're down in the beer parlor. And I'm looking after their kids. You know, wiping their noses, fixing their broken finger or something at the cross. We started to get Donnie Benson, who went through to the Canadian Lacrosse Association, finally took over from me, and Donnie did very well, and he was one of the ones that had the games here in U.S. Minister back in '76. He did a lot more for getting the parents involved, and it's a tough thing to get the parent involved, but once you get them involved, the particular player would say, well, we're going to the lacrosse game tonight, and then he'd bring the parent along. Then we started to pick it up a bit, but it's a case that the moms, more so than the dads, were the ones who got involved.
Right. The dads are working.
The dads is working. I'm going down for a beer. I don't want to sit here watching my kid play lacrosse. They'll look after him. And that's the attitude that it was there for that period of time. And we tried to follow it up. And then we started to work on the moms. And a lot of the moms became executives within the organization. Very good, hard-working executives. And we used to have little bake sales and stuff like that to earn money for the team. And that's where the women became very. Cook, she was a secretary for the Minor Lacrosse Association for years, and she worked hard, and there was quite a few of them. But that was the problem, is that we lost the contact, father-son, mother-son thing.
Right.
Then we started run into the girls wanting to play lacrosse.
And this is the 70s, 60s?
This was in the 80s.
In the 80s, okay.
The girls started all of a sudden want to play lacrosse.
Right.
And they started to form a few of the teams. I never got involved in that. I was already on my way out. But the mothers got involved with, and there are some very good girls lacrosse teams.
Are there?
Oh, yes.
In New Westminster here?
Well, in this area,
right.
Tri-City area.
Right.
I went to a game strictly by accident. I thought I seen some playing on it. I thought they were guys.
Oh, really?
I'm looking at them and I, God, you guys got long hair. It's all the way down to the back of his back. And the woman sitting next to me, she said, that's my daughter. I said, I beg your pardon? That's my daughter. And this gal, she could run circles around some of the guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And quite hey, they were, I wouldn't want to be on that team on the field with them. Anything goes. They go in the corner and you get the butt end of the stick.
Yeah.
You know, that everything, you know, and they were tough. And they still have a league, same as they do in soccer out here. But these are things that, with the allowing of girls to come into the sports field as an equal, has become part of the norm, so to speak. And I think that helped a lot of the lacrosse as well. I know one fellow was telling me, and I was sitting there listening to him talk with his dad. He says, I don't want to go out there and play against them girls. He says, they're dirty.
Oh, really?
Dad says, what do you mean? He says, they go in the corner, and he says, they hold you like this, but they take their shoulder at you. He says, and they knock you off the ball. And the kid was scared of it.
Really?
Yeah, they are out there to prove themselves, and anything goes.
Oh,
good. Legitimate. Don't get me wrong. Legitimate. A good, clean check.
Yeah.
They'll hit you. They'll go down there and they'll hit you. And they're good at it, too.
Yeah.
Just like a hockey player.
Yeah.
I said, there's one kid, and God, he went. I'm looking, and my God, what happened to him? She hipped him.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So then are there mixed teams now then too, or?
I have only heard of one girl that played for a mixed team. She normally played for the girls' team.
Right.
I did not know she was a girl. She was playing on that, what do you call it? And the guy says, we have to have a separate dressing room. And I'm looking at him, I says, what do you mean? He says, well, we have one girl on that team, and she dresses separately.
Right.
I said, which one? Because they all look, I'm looking there, and they got the helmets and the gear, and she's got the padding on, and I know why she was playing for the guys. She was heads above them.
Really?
Smart.
Right.
She played lacrosse with her head. She knew where to go. She knew how to react, and she knew how to, when the guys go in to check her, she knew how to roll the check. Very seldom did she ever get checked solidly. She was moving. She was so flexible. She was like a sack of potatoes. So when she moved, you couldn't get her with a good check. And this gal was very, very good.
Do you still go to see games?
I will be going to my first game in over 15 years at the Founders Cup, only because I owned the team that won the first Founders Cup 37 years ago, and they got one on the 21st of August at Coquitlam, and I've been asked to go out there.
So Founders Cup, that's for senior B?
Junior B.
Junior B. Oh, okay.
That's the Luthwaits and the Mathesons and the Decents when we won every game except one, and the only game we lost is when we got off the train when we come in from Winnipeg to North Bay. We got off the train, and 2 hours later we played and we were beat. We lost that, and the team that beat us, they had only lost 2 games all year.
Really?
They were an all-star team, part of the the Bishop Greengales. And our team was an all-star team, I'll tell you this much. They would not let me call them all-stars. They weren't going to let me play in the league out here. I says, fine. I says, I'll sue you. Number 1. Number 2, I'll challenge you at the end of the year. You can't do that. I said, oh, yes, I can. You got to remember, I sat on the BC in the Canadian Lacrosse Association when we wrote the rules. And then I says, and I will challenge the junior A's, Heath Jackson's team,
the Salmon Bellies,
juniors, and I will challenge the senior man cup Salmon Bellies. Well, man, my phone melted in my hand. You can't do that. I says, yes, I can. It's all amateur. If the Man Cup Salmon Bellies won, and I challenged them and I beat them, I go back to represent the team for the Canadian Championship in the Senior Bellies.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, this never been heard of before. I had guys, you can't do that. I says, oh, yes, I can. I'm stupid. I'm a dumb Ukrainian and I don't know any better. I had a team that was 16 and 17-year-olds that were as good, if not better, than anything they had out here.
At the time. And this is
the Luthwaits, the Mathesons, the Decents, okay, the Bennies, Petersons. We were renting our players to the seniors, $50 a game.
Really?
And they said, you can't do that. I says, I have personal contract. They were all under personal contract, and I owned them.
Right.
You want my players to play? You pay us for it. We had a dressing room that was twice as good as anything out here. Every one of my players had a tie, a cardigan, and a shirt. They went out and black pants. And when they went on the floor, they were professional. I had made a lot of money in Dynasty. I went in at 40 cents, and 2 years later when I come out at $22 a share, all capital gains, and I financed the whole thing. Okay. All of those players, Neil Holloway was one. All of the players played senior. At least one game. We made sure that every player that played for me went up and played one game. The Larsons all played one game in senior. And we designate to them what player went up. And they held their own. And that's one thing that Neil will tell you. He says, everybody in our team, junior B team, went up, didn't play juniors, but played one game in senior. And they wanted a player, we tell them, we got so-and-so, it'll go up. Well, we want, no, this guy's turn. What happened? He held his own. And we had some fair. 90% of the players that played on that team had moved up to the
Right.
senior
Really?
Valley ranks. Yeah.
And when was this?
This was 37 years ago.
The 1960s.
Yeah. Well, right after that, 70s, is when they started moving up. Al Luthwaite played for the senior Valley. Ray Benny Peterson played for them. We had Holloway played for him a couple of years. We had Deason played for a good many years. Even with his knees gone on, I had to buy braces for him.
What happened when you challenged these the Salmon Bellies?
Well, they conceded and let us play in the league.
Oh, they did?
Oh, yeah. We challenged the junior club. We beat them, and we had a heck of a time.
You beat them?
We beat them twice. They beat us once, we beat them twice. And they were so embarrassed. One guy, he was going to kill us. Oh, he was ready to fight with us. Rudy Reisinger wasn't bad. Rudy was on the fire department those days, but this other guy, oh, good, Kenny Wanzowski. He was so fit to be tied, broke his stick, went into a tantrum. We beat them twice, and this had never been heard of, because we're all 2 years younger than them. And these are the junior Sound Bellies. Didn't impress us. We're the Westminster Athletics. They wouldn't let me call them All-Stars, so we had athletics. So we had a blue cardigan with a big A. And when we won the Canadian Championship, we had crests made with Canadian champions of the year. In fact, mine's up in the Hall of Fame, I think. Okay. Our approach to it was we were a team. Everybody was as good as the next guy. That was the whole concept that we worked on. Art Burrow, my coach, coached them that way. Benny Hoskins was my trainer. Harvey Borland was our equipment manager. Everything was to the point that nobody was any better than the other guy. We had some great all-stars.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. Ray Benny could take a stick like that, and him and Bionda could sit there and twirl that stick and put on a show. We were in Winnipeg. At halftime, Ray went out there and put on a show for the Winnipeg and St. James Arena. And they didn't want to let him off the floor because he was showing them how to handle a stick, and over the shoulder scoring and that sort of stuff. And we had to bring him back out again for another 10 or 15 minutes before we started the game. The team, and that's when Al Luthwaite had his ear bitten off in what do you call it? I got the phone call from Donnie at night. Donnie worked for BC Tel, and we hooked up I had to come back. I was there. I had to come back, and Donnie was there. He was coaching the team because Art couldn't go. And he turned around, and he phones me, and he says, we get trouble. Now, Al was the youngest guy on the team. The biggest guy, but the youngest guy. I think he was 15, 16.
Okay.
And he says, somebody bit Al's ear off. Got into a fight, and a guy from Ontario bit his ear off. And I'm looking out the window, and I lived across the street from his mother, and she's walking across the street. I says, I think I'm going to find out about it, Tony. Why? He says, Al's mother's walking across here. So she got over to me, and she says, Bill, I hear Al had some trouble. I says, I just got a phone call. I says, he had a little bit of trouble, but he's okay. Is he okay? I says, yes, he's okay. You're sure? I says, he's okay. They had to sew his ear back on.
Really? This was quite the team.
It was, you had to be there to experience this kind of an experience. Our per diem, we had a per diem for all the players. We went first class, and it was a team that was like Neil, even now, because he's involved with this Founders Cup here, and he says that's the only team that I played with, like it was a family.
Right.
And it was.
Right. Is the Founders Cup a national cup
yes,
as well?
It's a Canadian championship.
For Junior B, is that right?
Junior B.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we took the first one out here 37 years ago. Well, I'll give you that right up.
Yeah. So, tell me a bit about first of all, tell me a bit about what the facilities were like out here. I mean, not just lacrosse, but you've played with...
facilities out here were always 20 years behind the times.
Oh, okay.
Your dressing rooms were cubby holes, whether it was soccer or football. Half the time soccer, you had to dress on the field because there's no facilities. The arenas were drungy looking. When we went into the Queen's Park Arena, we asked for and demanded a separate dressing room of our own. We didn't want to be involved with the hockey club's dressing room or the senior belly's dressing room. And we dressed it up, cleaned it up, and we had one of the senior guys walk into our, and he's looking around. I can remember this to this day. He says, "How come you guys got it painted and all this stuff on your thing?" He says, "Well, we come in one weekend and we did it for ourselves and cleaned it all up. But it used to be grungy. Showers half the time didn't work." Okay, in the Queens. Now you got to remember, Queens Park Arena was an old arena.
Was it?
Yeah, it was an old arena, and you had 5 dressing rooms in there, and it's like going into Skid Row to dress. Really, it was the Skid Rows of thing. Kerrisdale wasn't bad, and in Richmond we played in an open arena, so you're lucky if you had anywhere to dress there. And then Kerrisdale wasn't bad. Vancouver was fit to be desired. I think if
this is the Forum, right?
Yeah. The old Forum, the football Forum. If it was in today, it would be condemned.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what happened, right?
It would be condemned. They wouldn't let you dress
right. But I've been told that the Kerrisdale Arena was the best.
Yeah. Kerrisdale was. It was a newer arena, and they looked after it, and they had the ice skating. What do you call it out of there? And it was a beautiful arena.
The figure skating.
Figure skating club in there. We had Hyatt here, but even at that, it wasn't. But we would never survive in today in that, because the demand today is so different from then. We're just glad to have somewhere to change in those days. Today, and today it cost you money to play. In those days, it didn't.
Right.
You had to rent the arena to play today, whereas back then you don't. North Shore has got a good one. The Indians had a nice place over there.
Are they still a team?
Yes, they are. I don't know whether the Josephs, the seniors. I know the Joseph senior, but there's a couple of young Josephs that are still involved.
Are they still called the Indians?
Yeah, North Shore Indians. Yeah. And we used to play field lacrosse over there on a Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, they loved it because they couldn't get booze on a Sunday, but we could, so we bring all the booze over on a Sunday, and we sit there play and drink in field lacrosse.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a beer league.
It's a beer league, I remember going into Nanaimo in the Senior B, and we played the Nanaimo, and they had a lot of Indians playing for them. And I drank in those days, not like today. I got bombed out, and all I can remember is this big Indian's got me under his arm, carrying me back to the boat.
To the ferry? To
the ferry. We had at least a ferry from BC Coast Ferries, because they were on strike, and we couldn't get over any other way, so we leased this thing. We got finished. We're sitting in a restaurant, and they're arguing over this bird. It's a chicken. It's a duck. It's a chicken. And this guy takes it, and he throws it over, and it's a chicken, of course. And he says, "See, it's a duck, and this thing is floundering, can't swim." We finally had to dive in and get it out of the water. Okay. These are the crazy things that you're remembering of the time. We got on the boat. We got back. Now, back then, and that's in the 60s, you have to remember, $5,000 was a lot of money.
Right.
That was our bill to repair the damage that was done on the boat.
Really?
They tore the boat apart. I didn't see it. I was bombed out, but they showed us pictures.
So you weren't involved at all?
I don't even remember whether I was or I wasn't. I couldn't tell you, Lynn. I was bombed out, and all I can remember is the guys at me and put me down. "I'm taking you back to the boat. You can't miss the ferry." And he's carrying me, and he was the goalie. And he was an Indian.
So you guys would play against each other, and then you'd drink together?
Oh, yeah. I was playing in Kelowna. Now, Herb Capozzi used to play football for Montreal.
Okay.
And he just quit playing football then. And he come back home. And he's playing for the Kelowna in lacrosse. Now, little old me at about 175 pounds, green as grass, watching, and here comes Capozzi, who's a linebacker, professional football player down, and Herbie can't see 4 feet in front of him. He come over the top of me, he hit me, I hit the floor, my pants stayed there, and I'm 4 feet down here with bare ass showing. I went down the floor, and my pants took the bottom part of this. All I had was a little sarong, and he hit me. He didn't even see me. He came up to me after, he said, "I didn't even see him." Blind as a bat, because he didn't have glasses on.
Oh,
and
really?
These are the kind of games you play, and the crazy kooky things that used to happen.
Wow. Wow.
But that was the senior B league up there. We played at Vernon.
Tell me a little bit about some memorable experiences that you've had.
Well, that's one of them.
You've mentioned a few. How about some awards? Or
well, we won the when we came back, we won the Columbian Award for the only team in Westminster that won a Canadian championship back then. Everybody else lost. The Green Gaels beat the Salmon Bellies out here and the junior Salmon Bellies every year. He had an all-star team that you couldn't touch. Bishop.
This is when? This is
back in about 37 years ago.
Oh, okay.
We won the plate. We got the award for that.
And that's the Founders Cup, is that right?
No, we won the Founders Cup, the Columbian paper then.
Oh, okay.
Which existed. That was the paper here.
Right. They
gave out an award for the city award for the best team, and we won that. I remember that. I think one of the most memorable things that I remember is going into Victoria. Fletcher was the Mr. Lacrosse in Victoria in the minors.
Mm.
He had a marvelous organization, just a marvelous organization. And he had 3/4 of the island players to draw from. We went over there, and we knew that they had all-star team.
Mm.
No two ways about it. We went over, and we won out of 6 divisions. We won 4 of the championship division. That was quite a moment. We won the cups.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it floored us. Then the following year, we went into Nanaimo, and we held our own. We won, out of the 6, we won 3, which was a tough goal because they had Norm Baker over there was teaching, Archie Browning was teaching lacrosse, Whitey Severson was over there as a fireman teaching lacrosse. They come out of Westminster, and they went over to play for the Shamrocks. One of my greatest experiences was the first game I played for senior Salmon Bellies. I got a phone call. We're going to be playing the Shamrocks.
This is Victoria, right?
Victoria.
Yeah.
This is a new team that's just been formed on Vancouver Island. They got a franchise. They're the senior team. Okay. And I'm on the plane with Bertie Houston. Okay. And Bertie's sitting next to me. Now, Bertie come out of the war years as what do you call a pilot.
Okay.
We're in a DC-3. And I'm sitting in here, and I'm hanging on to everything because I'm looking out the window, and the wings are going up and down like a bird flying. And I'd never been in an airplane before. I got on the plane at 5:30.
Oh, you've never been on a plane?
I'd never been on a plane before. And we're flying to Victoria, and I'm looking out there, and there's lots of water down there. I'm looking at, and these things are going up and down. And, and I'm hanging on there. He's laughing. Bertie's laughing. He says, "You've never flown before." I said, "This is the first time I've been inside a thing. Are they supposed to be like that?" He said, "Oh, that's nothing." He said, "Wait till you get into a storm." "We're not going to hit a storm, are we?" He said, "I'll probably have my stomach up." He said, "No." And he said, "We'll be all right." We flew into Victoria. My first game ever.
As a senior Salmon Belly.
Yeah, and Billy Joe was with us. Billy was with us. And Jack Woods gets up and gives us a speech. "We come over here to show you how we play lacrosse." Okay. Now, Norm Baker was over there. He played for senior Adnax, so he's been around, and he used to play basketball for the New York Knicks, and he's a big bugger. Whitey Severson used to play for the Adnax. We taught him in lacrosse over here in our minor system. He was over there. And Jackie Northrup, who used to go to Trap Tech, he was over there playing for him.
Oh, really?
We get out of the field. We get beat 14-3, and we're over there to show them how to play lacrosse. You should have seen the comments coming back, how embarrassed we were. We couldn't do anything. These guys were so well trained and in shape. They ran circles around us. Bill Dickinson was playing for us then, and he says, and Bill's a heavy big boy, and Eric, and God, he says, I couldn't even catch up to them, let alone, stop them. And he's a defenseman. Oh yeah, that was one experience that I had that I'd never forget. I often remember Bertie, who's with the Hayek Anvil.
Okay.
And Bertie's, I often say that Bertie, I says, Christ, I should remember that first trip going over there. But these are some of the things that stick in your mind.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
Mm-hmm. But when you're listening to Jack, and Jack Woods was the coach, the mayor's husband from Westminster. He worked for the light department here, and he turned around and he makes this remark, and you figure, oh, geez, he must know what he's talking about. We couldn't get more than 3 goals. Their goalie, phenomenal. This guy was all over that goal. That stick, I don't think that stick ever touched the floor. It's just going in all directions. And then the first time I'd ever seen a goalie pass almost the length of the lacrosse box.
Really?
And I'm looking at him. He's got this big stick, and he goes, boom, and the guy's breaking.
Like Patrick Roy or something.
Yeah. And I'm looking. The guy's all by himself. White's out there all by himself. And that ball is up 3/4 of that. Everybody's looking. Nobody went after him. They're looking because they're amazed that the guy could pass. They had a fabulous little goalie.
So what have you enjoyed most about sports?
My enjoyment of sports is basically working with kids, training the kids, and while I played, the camaraderie-ship of being involved in a team concept. Okay, not as an individual, but as a team concept.
Right.
I think a team concept gives you a lot more satisfaction in knowing that you are part of something with the group. And that's the way when we had our minors, when I owned that junior B club, that was the whole concept that I had then. And I now realize why.
Right.
Okay, nobody's any better, nobody's any worse. Everybody was the same. Whether you were a top-notch #1 player or the worst one on the bench. But you played, you're treated the same, and I have a lot of fellows that quite often come back to me and say that was one of the best times of my life. Neil Haldy is a good example of that. You know, he had a lot of problems with the parents at home, and we took him, and he's the first one to tell you. That was an enjoyable.
And it obviously made an impact.
Oh, yes, quite a big impact. In fact, I was just talking to him. He wanted me to come into this meeting. And Ray Benny's dad, Gimbal Benny, passed away quite a few years ago. He was my secretary for my lacrosse. He came out of Saffron. And he was quite involved with a lot of different things, and they put a bench down on the quay with his name on it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking to Neil the other night. He says, I go down and talk to Gimbal quite often. I says, you too? He says, yeah. He says, I go down, I sit on the bench, and I talk to Gimbal about a lot of the old times that we used to have. I